1 Peter 2:9 says, you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for God's own possession. You are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a people for God's own possession. I just want to point out that you are no longer a sinner. The greatest lie, or one of the greatest lies in Christendom, is that you're a sinner saved by grace. Let me point out before you run out of the room. You were a sinner. I was a sinner. Paul said, while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. So thank God. And by the way, we should never forget where we came from, because then we start making judgments about other people who don't yet know the Lord and struggle as we did when our nature was evil. But how many of you know, when you received Christ, you became a new creation. The word new means prototype, never before created. I'd like to point out that you got a new heart and a new mind, that you actually don't have a sin nature anymore. When you receive Jesus Christ, you receive the nature, divine nature, Peter said. It is not even in your nature to sin. In fact, 1 John 2 says, if you sin, we have an advocate, an attorney. If you sin, how many know 1 John 1 says, if you say you haven't sinned, you make him a liar. How many know before you came to Jesus, you sinned? I sinned, and the only way to come to Christ is to admit I need a Savior because I am a sinner. I didn't just sin, it's my nature to sin. But once I received Christ, how many know if I continue in sin, I don't need a Savior, I've already got a Savior. I need an attorney, because how many know he's taken away the nature of sin. And now I am more than a conqueror. Are you with me? There's a river that runs through my soul. It runs towards the throne. If I don't paddle, I'll end up at God's house. It's actually my nature to be righteous. I have a righteous nature. I'm pointing out that if you're struggling with sin, which all of us have at times, one of the first things I do is I remind myself who God made me to be. How many of you know condemnation says, you sinned, you are a sinner. You lied, you are a liar. You have same-sex attraction, you're a homosexual. And the enemy, the devil, tries to convince me that my temptation is my identity. But how many know conviction goes, you're way too awesome to be acting like that. Conviction goes, you lied, that's not who you are, stop it. You're a holy people. You are a royal people. You're a noble people. There is a difference between noble people and not noble people. And we are noble people. Noble people aren't people who don't have temptation. Noble people are people that actually use their temptation to strengthen them. Do you know, my mother, when she was sick with cancer, she has since passed. She actually had lung cancer. And she got operated on, and they took out most of one lung. And she was in the hospital for like 3 months. She was in her, I think she was 79 years old when she actually got an operation. And so we went to pick her up, and the doctor said, oh, she has to go to therapy, and like physical therapy. I'm like, okay, I had never been through this with, a person that I'm actually caring for. I'm like, why does she have to go to physical therapy? And he said, well, she has to learn how to walk again. Now I'm completely confused. And I said to the doctor, I don't want to sound stupid, but didn't my mom have a lung cancer? He said, yeah. I said, well, how did it affect her legs? He thought that was funny. He's like, this is a real idiot we have here. He said, your mother's been laying for 3 months without walking, and her legs have atrophied. And so she'll have to go to physical therapy, learn how to walk again. I'm like, oh. And then I walked out there, I'm like, if you don't use it, you lose it. And I was thinking, my mom doesn't work out with weights. My mom doesn't run a marathon. My mom doesn't do anything to exercise. But what my mom does do is get off the couch. What my mom does do is walk to the kitchen. And what I'm getting at is without my mom trying to be in good physical shape, my mom has pushed against gravity for 80 years. And therefore, because she's pushed against gravity by getting up and walking and getting off the couch, she's built muscle. And when she laid on the couch, when she laid on the bed for 3 months and didn't move, she didn't push against gravity, her legs atrophied, and she actually had no strength. Temptation is gravity to the spirit. Temptation is good for you. Temptation is how I build muscle.
Wow, that's great, Kris.
When the enemy goes, how about her? And I go, no. How about, aren't you bitter with that person? And I go, nope.
Yeah, that's so good.
Your neighbor hates you, and I love them. What I'm doing is becoming noble. It's not, see, I'd like to point out that you without temptation is what happens when you lay in bed without moving for 3 months and you can't move. You can't get up because you didn't push against gravity. I'd like to point out that temptation is training you how to be noble. And the difference between a noble man and a common man is a noble man pushes against temptation, and a common man decides that the temptation is not what he does, but who he is. And once you decide, see, the challenge with condemnation is that once I decide that my sin is my identity, I will always reproduce the environment around me, listen to this, that I believe I have within me. Not what I have within me, what I believe I have within me. So if I think I'm a liar, guess what? I'll need 12, let me say it differently. If I believe I'm an alcoholic, even though I don't drink, I will need 12 steps and 15 men to keep me from doing my B. See, I love Alcoholics Anonymous. I had an alcoholic stepfather, so I was glad that at one point he actually went and stopped drinking. But one part of the Alcoholics Anonymous I don't love is the meeting starts like this. Hi, I'm John, and I'm an alcoholic. I haven't drank in 20 years, but I'm an alcoholic. Guess what? You believe you're an alcoholic because you believe you're an alcoholic. And guess what? If you believe you're a sinner, you'll sin by faith. I am not the temptations I resist. I don't care if the temptation is alcohol, if it's drugs, if it's pornography, if it's hatred, if it's bitterness, if it's anger. I am not my temptations. And when those temptations come, one of the first things I do is I say, that is not who I am. And I separate myself from the temptation. Listen, one of the worst things that can happen for our children is that we teach them that what they did makes them who they are. When I say, son, you're bad, you know what I just did? Listen, the one thing, I might correct my son 10 times in a day for the same thing, but the one thing I don't want to do is for him to think or her to think that what she does is because of who she is. I have to say, in some way or another, that is not who you are. You are better than that. Because soon as my kids, maybe from the frequency of their own need for discipline, sometimes the frequency of their own need for discipline can create in them, I'm a bad person. And we have to keep them out of, you're a bad person. You're not a bad person. You're an amazing person who's behaving below your identity. Are you with me? I want to read you something. Morality is whispered only in the safety of the closest of friends, and purity has become a well-kept secret. Nobility has virtually disappeared from society, viewed as old man's musings, irrelevant to 21st century hipsters and the PC crowd. In fact, moral restraint is viewed as a bondage that shackles society, promoted only by religious bigots and antiquated dinosaurs who are disappearing in the ice age of a sunless society. And so we, with noble purpose, cower in the corner of culture, living in the shadows of society, desperately hoping we don't awaken the hipster's dissatisfaction and invite upon ourselves unnecessary persecution. Meanwhile, our children march slowly into darkness while we congratulate ourselves on another day without offense. This is not who we are. Like, this is not who we are. We, fathers and brothers, are commissioned to be courageous. We are commissioned to be courageous. We don't have the luxury of retreating in the face of danger. Fathers are called to run towards the sound of trouble and engage hostility that is perpetuating itself against our families. We are the first to go to danger. We send a loud message to all hostiles that there will be resistance to hurting this family. There will be a noble defender ready to protect this lineage. This is who we are. Spiritually speaking, there are amber alerts going off in many of our homes because one of our children have been abducted by the devil, and sometimes we are not in tune enough to even know that they are missing. We don't have to be spiritual giants, but it's incumbent upon us to at least be spiritual.